Well, I suppose we could say it's what at the basis of what I was saying was it's built upon concept of perspective. So we like to refer to the divisions of sambandha, gyan, abhideya, prayojan. Sambandha can mean relationship or a connection between things. I sometimes say it as perspective. Prayojan, the fruit, the goal, the conclusion, the ultimate necessity. So understanding what that is and what your present position is or perspective is in relation to that, then abhideya comes to the fore. In other words, how to proceed, get directions, right? You put in the, point A, point B, get directions. Then I tell you, well, if this is your starting point and this is where you're trying to go, then this is the way you should proceed. It's something like that. So, but we're told it's very important to embrace sambandha gyan. In fact, in the Prakrita Rasa Shatadushini of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he's saying without proper sambandha gyan, really you're not moving in the devotional line proper. To make a point, you say, well, what if someone is, although not properly adjusted, they're serving under the guidance of a higher Vaishnava? Then they're in the right position. They're going in the right way also. But this point is there of this necessity to properly weigh, assess, measure, establish value. That's why when my dialogues with Srila Guru Maharaj, I asked him different questions, some of them good, and he got inspired to come out with something deeper, higher, new, fresh. But other times, I saw him express some disappointment or, what's the word, consternation. When I'd ask some question, and on the basis of that question, it was obvious to him that I was indiscriminately discussing things, not in a systematic way. That's when he said to me once, he said, haven't you gone through Brihad Bhagavatamritam? And at the time I said, no. And he advised me to do that, sanctioned me to do that. So I think the readings were substantial and meaningful because of his order and sanction. And he said, there, Sanatana Goswami, we've seen in Charitamritam and other places, but Rupa Goswami is sometimes called the Bhakti Rasa Acharya, Rasa Acharya. But Sanatana Goswami in one place is called Bhakti Siddhanta. I can't think that's just a coincidence, that Bhakti Siddhanta. He gives us proper Siddhanta. Remember, Rupa Goswami is later assisted by Jiva Goswami and others, because what he's saying is there are many assumptions. So there are prerequisites for you to come to the point of understanding these things. He's not giving detailed instructions about that in his plays, Bidagda Madhava, Lalita Madhava. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he's analyzing devotion in so many ways, but and also in an original way. What Bharat, and this is somewhat dealing, an answer to your question is, the seed of that is in this. What was given, the type of analysis given by Bharat Muni for plays, drama, theater, Rupa Goswami co-opted that and applied it to devotion and adjusted a few things. Now, we could say from an overview, a Leelic overview, that really it's that way already, but to set up Rupa Goswami, Bharat Muni appears. We can think many different things. But he did take his system of analysis and apply it to this. So we find sometimes the spiritual experts, they're doing that. Like Guru Maharaj can take Hegel and find so many bridges between Hegelian ideas and Krishna consciousness. We could say bluntly, simply, and accurately, Hegel at best is a Brahmavadi by Vedic standards, but these principles that he's talking about, reality is for itself and by itself, self-determination, different things, they're mirrored in Vedic understanding, Puranic understanding, and Guru Maharaj's way of expressing Gaudiya ontology. So, you're quoting me, and I have also said, if you want to add this to that, that when Freud was asked, what is the purpose of psychoanalysis? He said, and remember, psycho means soul. So we can say soul analysis. And he said, to convert neurotic suffering into ordinary suffering. People thought he was going to say, to make people happy. That's the when you undergo this type of analysis, you'll come out a happy person. That's what they thought. That's not what he said. He said, to convert neurotic suffering into ordinary suffering. It's a little bit of a clever repartee, but there's something to be said about that. So what I was suggesting by observation, that we see the cause of the suffering of Braja Gopis and others is separation from Krishna, as given in the Gopi Gita, those slokas, Tava Katamritam, Tapta Jivanam, etc. Then we hear in the Bhagavatam, Bhayam Datiya Binibeshi Tatsyat, Ishada Petasya Biparyayo Smriti. Here we want to say forgetfulness, but it causes separation. I'm applying it to this also and saying that the real cause of our present suffering is separation from Krishna. But this is one type, that's another type. So both can be a starting point. So when we read in the Gita, Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukritin orjana arto jigyasa artarti gyani chabaratarshabha, there's a partial answer to your question, but it's qualified by the word sukriti. So it's saying people in different types of distress conditions, I'll say it that way for the sake of this talk, if they have the sukriti, doesn't say everybody, but it says jana sukritin orjana, those who have sufficient sukriti, where when they're in these circumstances, it may be a catalyst for coming in connection, spiritual search. Not everybody. So everyone is suffering in different ways. But why is it one person, like Prabhupada says in one place, when someone realizes that material life, the complexity of material life is a constant source of perplexity, bewilderment, confusion, and anxiety. He said it behooves such a person to approach a spiritual master. But not everybody does that. So the key word there is sukriti. Those of sufficient sukriti, when they find themselves in some completely distressing circumstance or depression, right? Veda Vyasa's depression led him to dive deep into reality. Of course, that's high example, Veda Vyasa. But someone within this world, it may, but it may be temporary also. We hear of smashana vairagya, the renunciation of at the funeral pyre. People go to a funeral and momentarily they're thinking, or I heard some news today, some horrible news we hear about some children dying somewhere or some other people, and then we may think, what is this world? It's so brutal. Prabhupada would sometimes quote Saraswati Thakur saying, it's not a place fit for gentlemen. And these different feelings may come to us. But then they leave easily also. Right? So again, in the Gita, Krishna is saying, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. If you're got the right darshan perspective of where you are and the world, then you'll realize this suffering, birth, death, old age, and disease, these are things that are inescapable. And you're going to have to deal with them, whether you're in Krishna consciousness or not. As Guru Maharaj defined Shudra in relation to the Ramachandra pastime of beheading Shudraka. He said, Shudra, by definition, we heard this a long time ago, means one who wails or laments. Right? That's what it literally means, Shudra. Who's crying out in agony, anxiety, wailing, lamenting. Why? Guru Maharaj, his explanation was, he said, one who accepts this life as all in all, this world as all in all, he will have to lament. That's why Sukadeva, again, very strong language, telling Parikshit Maharaj near the end of the Bhagavatam, Tanturaja Marisheti Pashubudhimi Mam Jahi. I mean, it almost sounds insulting. He's saying, to think that you will die is Pashubudhi. Animals think they will die. He's saying, a spiritually realized, advanced person, he won't think like that. Dhiras tatra namuhyati. He won't be bewildered by this. Socrates, bring the hemlock. Big glass. Saying that this, my body will be finished, but I won't be. He knew that. Fidel Castro wrote some letters in the 1950s. They discovered these kind of like spiritual letters he wrote. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he practically said, once you realize that you're not your material body, but that you're a spiritual being, you're not afraid of dying and, for the revolution, etc. Even he could understand that on some level. Socrates, Fidel Castro. That's why Mahaprabhu was telling Sanatan, to offer your body, that won't get you Krishna. So, why did I say that? Oh, identifying, so Sukadeva telling Maharaj Parikshit. And so, Narada chastising Vyasa, he's feeling despondent, depressed. Right? Pisachi paile jena mati chana hoy, maya grishta, jivera hoy, se bhav udoy, Jagadananda Pandit in the Prema Vivarta says about the jivas, what are they? Pisachi paile jena mati chana. Mati chana is a classic Bengali expression, means crack-brained. Once some fellow, he bowed down to give Gurudev Dandavat. This is a long time ago. While he was down, Gurudev went, means crack. His brain is cracked like a coconut. Mati chana. Pisachi paile jena mati chana hoy. Saying, when you're Maya Grishta, Jivera hoy se babu doy. When you're under the clutches of Maya, the witch, haunted by the witch of Maya, said, you speak all kinds of nonsense like a ghostly haunted person. So, there's schizophrenia in the clinical sense, but this sort of dual personality, it's like being crazy within the crazy world. Because we're all in varying degrees insane, deluded, struggling with the senses, what do they say, manashashtani indriyani, prakriti stani karshati, struggling with the senses, of which, remember, you have 6 senses. The 5 obvious ones, and the mind. And the mind is the sense that we have the most problem with. Udared atman atmanam natmanam avasadit atmaiva yatmano bandhur atmaiva ripu atmana. Friend or enemy. There was a cartoon strip, comic strip in the 1960s where during the time of the Vietnam War, so there's all use of the word enemy, who's the enemy, and that kind of thing. And what was in the comic strip was one famous line where one of the characters says to another one, "We have met the enemy, and the enemy is us." Which is the actual truth. We are the enemy, the mind that we think is our friend. The uncontrolled mind. Like that Upanishadic example shows which they tried to use for Rath Yatra, was just insane. The commentator on TV. What is it? Atmanam ratinam vidhi shariram ratameva cha. I forget the rest. But it's quoted in Bhagavad Gita, purport. Saying, the body's like a chariot, the senses are 5 horses, and the soul's like the passenger, and the mind is like you have an insane driver. Crazy driver. Taking you for a ride. So, Guru Maharaj often uses the example of like mental illness. Deluded into thinking you're someone you're not. So without getting sambandha-gyan, a basic understanding of who I am and what my potential is, how can I proceed in a way that's actually beneficial for my self-discovery, self-realization, even ultimate autonomy? It's only one who's free from the influence of the mind and senses who's truly autonomous. Otherwise, we're under the influence of the senses, the mind. So have to come in connection with the proper agent who knows your identity, your reality potential, and can, under their guidance, you can engage in self-discovery, self-realization, self-actualization. Like the psychiatrist, they just have to bring the patient around to seeing things from that perspective. Give up the false ego, the false identity. Ajnana timrandasya jnananjana salakaya chakshuram militam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Ajnana. That's why Guru Maharaj is called acquired prejudice. Become free from sanskar is to become free from acquired prejudice. Then ascharjavat paschati kaschirenam. To have a glimpse of our soul, our self, our reality potential will be astonishing, fill us with wonder, and fuel practice and participation and hope. Sometimes Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Gurudev would say, oh, your future is so bright, because they can see what that future prospect is, based upon your servitor identity. Jive Swarupai Krishnera Nitya Das. When Sanatana Goswami, he says, Ke ami kene amoy jorita betroy. What he says at the beginning of Sanatan Shiksha with Mahaprabhu, who am I and why am I suffering from the threefold miseries? Adhyatmic, adibhotik, adidaivik. Self-inflicted, suffering induced by others, and so-called acts of God, nature. And he says, if I don't know this, how can I know what's beneficial for me? And the beginning of Mahaprabhu's teaching say, Jive Swarupai Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. You're the eternal servant of Krishna. That's your actual identity. But you're thinking of yourself that you'll realize your potential as an exploiting agent, extending the circumference of our ability to exploit others to our advantage, or what we think is our advantage. Exploitation, renunciation, dedication. As Guru Maharaj said, to leave the world of negative world, exploitation, and go to the neutral position. He said that's how far a passport can take you. Like the man who's stuck in the Moscow transit area. To go further, you need a visa. Same thing spiritually. And you're only granted a visa when the land you seek admission has determined that it's in their interest to give you entrance, admission. So that means to be free from exploitative tendencies. As long as we have the tendency to exploit, to think of ourselves as the subject and everything else as an object of acquire, control, consumption, how can you enter the spiritual domain. It's not possible. And also, that is a domain that is constituted of consciousness, devotional consciousness. It's not, we can't think in some linear geographic sense. Like, there's this spiritual world, and you're there, but you don't have the right mentality. No, I mean, one precludes the other. It's a plane of consciousness. How can I go there? By developing devotional qualities. We're told at the conclusion of the Kalyana Kalpataru, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur and that Nityananda Mahajana Pratyache Nam Hata, where he's saying, in one song, Bhaktivinoda says, Bhaktivinoda is a sweeper in the Nam Hata, in the marketplace of the holy name of Nityananda Prabhu. And Srila Saraswati Thakur comments saying, if Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a sweeper, then I'm one of the straws in his broom. And Guru Maharaj said, if we take it, this is a sincere expression. He's not just being clever. It's not just a clever thing to say. It's heartfelt. He said, then you can understand what is the unit of construction of the Swarup. It's made out of many such sentiments and heartfelt feelings and expressions. Right? Just as this body is the biological expression of the soul's delusion, this body is the outcome of misconception. The Swarup is the outcome of proper conception. Going from anartha, right, to prema pumarto mahan. From an exploiting agent to a dedicating agent. That's why here, wasn't it? Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikalashvapi avastashu jivan mukta suuchite. Can be jivan mukta, liberated in this lifetime, if one's karmana, manasa, kai manobhaka, body, mind, words, is dedicated exclusively to in seva. Guru Maharaj said, for such servitors, even sleep is seva. Everything can be that way. Like in Bhava Bhakti, 24 hours engagement is possible. Non-stop. Not sometimes Krishna conscious and then not. Mostly Krishna conscious, then not. Or very little, no. 24 hours, non-stop. Never going out of Krishna consciousness. That's Bhava Bhakti. And what does Kaviraj Goswami say? A Baal, A Manda, A Sabram. What's the first line? Yes. A Baal, A Manda, A Sabram. Oh, Dvaita, Dvaita, Badre, Sab Manodharm. Manodharm. It's a dream. This whole world. So, good dream, bad dream is a dream. There's nothing substantial there. So Guru Maharaj likes to remind us, like we might say, the moon, when the moon, and the rainy season, when the moon is covered by clouds. So, you see an illumined cloud. But the moon is, what's illuminating the cloud is the moon behind it. The cloud has no illumination on its own. So what is the cloud? Mind, intelligence, ego. Just like that cloud that's covering the moon. They're covering this body, the senses, the body, mind, intelligence, and ego. These layers, they're like clouds covering the soul. It's the soul that's illuminating them. So when we look at somebody, they look like they're alive. Or they look like they're thinking. Or they're doing so many things. Actually, it's the soul who is the doer in the background. What is that? Prakriti stani karshati. Karanam guna sangavasya sadasat jani jani. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasya ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. So, need to go first to the soul plane. Everything else is a covering, an acquired prejudice, a misreading. Only someone who is in pure Krishna consciousness can read the environment and environmental circumstances properly. Like an instrument. It needs to be, we need to be recalibrated. Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, Vaishnav, recalibrated. Then you can begin to read properly. And on the basis of proper readings, proceed. Without being recalibrated, all the readings are false. And we're making so many important decisions about doing this, not doing that, going this way, going. And the compass is off. The instrument is giving false readings. That's what ahankar does. Gives a false reading. Who I am, what is life, what are life circumstances, how I should proceed on the basis of that misconceived self and identity. Like the old Russian joke about the three crazy guys in the nut house talking to each other. And one says, God told me, and the other one goes, no, God told me just the opposite of that. And what? The third guy says, I never told either one of you either one of those things. He's crazier than the other two guys. That's what we're dealing with. People either think God told them this, or I never said that. And really, that's what's going on. So first, locate the self, locate Atma first. That's why Indriyani pranyahur indriyebhya parammanaha manasastu parabudhe yo budhe paratastusa. That's the beginning. But just to try and recondition the mundane, that's not a spiritual project. As Guru Maharaj told, Bhumir apo analo vayu kamano budhir evacha ahankara iti ame bina prakriti rash. These are all mundane things. So just to recondition mind, that's not Krishna consciousness. You won't get any. That's Prakriti Sahajyaism. That's their idea. Neuro-linguistic programming for the mind, the intelligence, and all you will get is simulated, superficial, counterfeit reality. Like the Rupa Goswami gives an example. Gurudev used to quote this because it's funny. What is it? Bilva Yugma Rachatan Nastastani, I forget. Anyway, that there's one gopi who's taking bale fruit. You ever seen bale fruits? They're like taking bale fruit and putting them in her, what do you call it? Like choli in her blouse, thinking that, and the other guy would say, oh, we should watch out for this one. She's really going to attract Krishna. I mean, this is a Rupa Goswami sloka. So she's putting bale fruit. Vaikuntya Pritivyari Sakala Chinmoy. Everything in the actual spiritual world is made out of Chinmoy, spiritual substance. So there's no question of exploitation there. So there's no possibility of entry there because it has to do with devotional development and quality. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santak sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti. When the heart deep core, under the influence of love and affection for Krishna, real devotion, then Nam, Rup, Guna, we can see, hear, have a spiritual, sensual experience. Otherwise not. It's all self-deception. Mamevang sajiva loke. And even in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, said, Krishna's playing with the gopis like a child playing with his own reflection. It's very mysterious. Why is Saraswati Thakur saying, when you wake up in the morning, beat your mind with a broom 100 times? Thank God we're not our minds. Cheto darpana marjanam. You know, when a mirror, because mind is like mirror, instrument of reflection. Have you ever been in a place where you saw a mirror covered with dust and another layer of dust? What it means, it gradually loses the quality of reflection and starts giving a distorted view of yourself, right? And everything else reflected before it. That's the situation. Only when the layers of dust, of misconception, they're removed, then you can start gradually seeing yourself, others, the world, everything. And that's exciting, a thrilling prospect. Life-changing, world-changing. Samasritaye padapalava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murare bhavam vatsa parampadam yad vipadam nateja. How can an ocean of ignorance, an insurmountable ocean of neshan or ignorance, be reduced to a drop? Sambandha gyan, a change of perspective, how we see things. So much so, Chakravarti Thakur takes it to the extreme. He's saying, higher devotees, what will they think? Oh, because it says vatsa padam, like the water left in the imprint of the hoof of a calf, not small. He said, but devotee will think, oh, but water the cows are sacred and holy. Water that bathe the cow, that's very good. So even the so-called mayak, there's no more maya for them. for those in the highest position. Everything's favorable. Every wave is favorable, as Guru Maharaj said. Babaji Maharaj, when the children are throwing dirt clods at him and calling him ill names, he's saying, I know it's you, Krishna, behind this. And I know how to deal with you also. I'll tell Mother Yashoda and she will spank you for your misbehavior. So we worship the lotus feet of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Saraswati Thakur said, I found all spiritual knowledge in a particle of his fingernail. And to mimic him, to mimic a Mahabhagavata is an offense, and we will go down. But at least we get hope in knowing there are those who are like that, for whom everything is properly adjusted. And that religion means proper adjustment. Under the influence of Sadhu, Shastra, Guru, and Vaishnav, we start seeing things differently. Like Guru Maharaj would sometimes use about Jiu-Jitsu. What's that negative, what's coming toward you, to adjust it in such a way that it becomes a positive. So much misconception, then preach proper conception. Convert it. That's what I like to say. So sometimes if Marx or Lenin said Rath Yatra is the ultimate in religious expression, yes. Or Hegel, a Brahmavadi, he's saying things, someone else is saying things. We'll see how it can make us think of Krishna. I met a crazy man once at a bus stop outside of a mental institution. And we both were looking at a ladybug. You know what a ladybug is? It's this little tiny bug, ladybug. They're usually like orange with black dots. And we were both like looking at this ladybug. And I said to him, what do you call a male ladybug? And he said, sir. And what he was showing me is like, I may be crazy, but I'm not stupid. And I thought, good point. So the devotees, we see different slokas, the Sarvabhauma sloka and elsewhere they say, they don't care if people think they're mad. Also Madhavendra Puri, that, Mugdam mam nigantu niti nipuna prashna body. Saying let, people say I've lost my mind, let the Vedic people say this, the ordinary people that, my relatives disown me. He goes through a whole list of all the people who are generally taken to matter, put it that way, people who are generally taken to matter, that their opinions matter. He's saying, let them all go to hell. And he said, and you can add to this that they can say that this Krishna consciousness you seek, by your own admission, you don't have it. Add that. So not only have I lost my mind, I'm deluded, but add to it the very thing that I aspire to, by my own admission, I don't have it. He said, but I'm still not going to budge an inch from pursuing this. It's a very beautiful verse attributed to Madhavendra Puri. There's a saying that's made its way around the internet and no one's really sure who said it, but it goes something like this. It's saying, and they were thought to be mad who were dancing, by those who could not hear the music. That reminds us of Krishna consciousness. Yanisha sarvabhutanam. Ami ek botul tumi dvitiya. I'm crazy the first, you're crazy the second. Mahaprabhu to Ramananda. So when you say madness, what's madness in the world? Krishna consciousness is like madness to people. But for those who are Krishna conscious, the people of this world, they think they're mad. Like Guru says, freedom for the senses, freedom from the senses. What is freedom? When you're free from the influence of the mind and senses, then you can say you're going in the right direction. But just like that man on the chariot with the 5 wild horses, that's not freedom. You know, say, no, the chariot's going all over the place freely. No, you're being dragged around, humiliated. The soul's being humiliated. I mean, sometimes here we have a lot of insect friends. I just saw a few on the way over. And sometimes, and they're in my room, I like to put them in little containers and let them go out the window. But sometimes I look at them and I imagine they're looking at me, you know, and I think, I don't think I'm better, but sometimes I am a little surprised to realize there's a soul animating that insect body, and what takes you to that plane scares me at times. I'm not scared of the insect, but like being one. But Bhaktivinoda, see, he's not afraid of that. Kita janmaho jata tu andasha bahir mukha brahma nahi janmayash. See, real devotee, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, I don't want to be Brahma if he's not a devotee. I'd rather be Kita, an insect in the house of a devotee. That he's taken on a far, far greater, deeper level. And what does Raghunath Das say? The Prayojan Tattvacharya. What does he say? Yat kinchit trigumaki kata mukam goshte samastam hita sarvananda mayam lilanukulanam mukunda doitam lilanukulam puram sashta eva muhu. Anyway. He's saying that even the insects and the dham are mukunda doita. They're dear to Krishna because they're lilanukul. They're helping promote the pastimes. But Guru Maharaj would say this kind of vision of seeing Dambasis as liberated souls, and that's what he calls mukta drishti. It's the vision of a liberated soul. Back to that. But we want to be under the influence of the vision of liberated souls, those who can see. They're seeing properly. That is the point. But relative has its necessity. So but we need, unless you properly conceive the absolute, then how will you know how to adjust the relative? Adjust it according to what? There has to be, again, that calibration. According to what? To what standard? No, all right, here's the absolute standard. Here we are locally. Adjust it like this. That'll be acceptable. So even if someone is crazy in a conventional, stereotypical sense, if they like to do some service or something, it's all right. Once I was in Moscow at Avtozavodskaya, our old, and someone said, if someone is an idiot, can they be Krishna conscious? This is a Russian question. And I said, yes. And then Muralishwar, actually, he was translating it. Then the man said the question, but on another level. He said, but what if someone is a complete, total idiot? And I said, I can assure you so Mahaprabhu says, he said, what did he say? My Guru Tomar Murkha, my Gurudev said, you're crazy, you're foolish. So you don't study Vedanta and all these things. You take this Krishna Nam, that'll be good for you. He's telling that to Prakasananda Saraswati and his 60,000 Vedantic scholarly sannyasi followers. Oh, my guru said I'm a crazy person, foolish, and better I just chant the holy name. He said, but then I started chanting the holy name, and my body was shivering, my voice, because it's Shuddha Nam, taking it that he's a devotee, he's chanting offenselessly, so he's getting the results. He's crying, all the ecstatic symptoms. He's dancing madly, not caring for anyone. He said, so I came back and told my Gurudev, what kind of mantra have you given me that this is the effect? And the Gurudev said, oh, we've heard about this. Gurudev used to say that to Guru. He said, all these things it says about the whole, any example of that? So his guru says, oh yes, you're very fortunate, my boy. That's what he's telling that to Prakashananda Saraswati. And then philosophy comes too. But so the first devotee who shaved his head and wore robes got arrested in New York, taken to Bellevue, which is the name of the hospital there for crazy people. They thought he was, had lost his mind. And so Srila Prabhupada wrote a pamphlet in response to this. He wrote a letter to the hospital about what Krishna consciousness is, the Krishna consciousness movement, other things. But the title of the pamphlet was, Who is Crazy? And then he expressed so many things. Hare Krishna. But we deal with Achintya Shakti and Adhoksaja. Divine madness. Remember when Mahaprabhu returns from Gaya, so-called God-intoxicated man, chanting Gopi Bhav, because he starts out Bhakta Bhav, now he's moving towards Gopi Bhav. And Sachi Mata, what is that Ayurvedic one called? Brahmi Rasayam. They still have it in India. They probably have some of the same. Anyway, And put that, and it's supposed to like cool your brain down. So she puts and he's laughing, 9 hours laughing. Think about it. Someone laughed hysterically for 9 straight hours. And then she's thinking, one bottle won't do, maybe bathtub full of Brahmi. Then make a bathtub, and he's in there laughing madly. And then Srivas Thakur comes, and Sachimata is saying, oh, Srivas, Prabhu, Nima has lost his mind. And Srivas says, what he's got, I want a drop of that. And then Mahaprabhu stops laughing and says, Srivas, if you thought I was crazy, then I was just going to leave the world. But that you understand, that gives me some encouragement. Swarupam Bibranam Jagatam Jagatatulyam Advaita Dvaita Prapanu Srivas Paramananda Janita Gaurima Harir Dina Dari Gajapati Kripotseka Tarala Satchetanna Kameu Punar Apidashur Yashati Padam. How dear is Advaita? Advaita Dvaita. It's a nice name. And Prapana Srivas. How surrendered he is. Mahaprabhu, I can never give up someone like that. So much love, affection, and dedication. Hare Krishna.